was fortunate enough this season to shoot 2 really good bucks. And over the past couple of years, I've gotten away from doing the head and shoulder mounts. So we're heading down to the house here. I want to show you these 2 deer, a buck I called Daggers and a buck I called the G5 buck. And I just boiled these things down. It's the classic European mount. And you're going to get a chance to see what they look like. I think they look awesome. And where I've got them here, I've got 3 of them stacked up vertically, one right above the other. You could never do that with a standard head and shoulders mount. There's just not enough room. So they're portable, they're compact, and they look really good. They're inexpensive to produce. And I can't see any reason why I would, well, I shouldn't say that. Someday I'm sure I'll head and shoulder mount another buck, but these bucks, you'll see them, they look awesome. Come on into the house. Okay, now that you've seen the deer, talk a little bit more about the process of how I create these European mounts. And there's really not a whole lot to it. I skin the deer out first and get all the meat off the head. I cut the lower jaw out, so there's just a minimum amount of material there that I'm boiling. I take one of these turkey fryers, and you can buy them pretty much at any of the large mail order companies, and fill it with water and get it boiling. And it's just an LP gas that heats it up. I'll boil it for, boy, I don't even know how long I boil it for. I bet it's at least an hour that I boiled originally the first time through on the skull. And then I'll scrape it off with a knife, scrape all the membranes and all the muscle and everything else off that's available to clean off. It's a little tricky. You also need a little wire hook. And I use that wire hook for cleaning up inside the nasal cavity. There's a lot of membranes that tuck up inside the nasal cavity. So first time through, I try to get as much of that stuff out as I can. I'm really careful because there's these little circular, small, thin, bone-shaped substances inside the nasal cavity. You don't want to destroy those. So you got to work really careful with that hook. Okay, so now I got the deer boiled once. I've got him cleaned up as good as I can the first time, and then I go back and boil him again. And the second time through, not as long, maybe half an hour. And this time through, I can scrape almost everything off it. I can get inside the brain cavity, coming in through the back of the skull, and clean out. There's some heavy membranes in there as well. You can pull out, and then you can start to loosen up the brain material itself. And then one more boil through typically will, you know, everything else is going to loosen up and come off at that point. So just with a knife, I can scrape off any more membranes or muscle material in the back of the skull and any place else on the side of the deer's skull, and clean up, you know, finally get all the membrane out of the nasal cavity. So it's really a 3-step process for me as far as getting the head cleaned up. A lot more boiling time than what there is actually picking and scraping time. You know, I'll probably pick and scrape for an hour total, and I probably boil for probably 2 hours total, maybe a little bit more than that. And then just get a 40% peroxide solution. I just use a basting brush that you can get at a grocery store, paint it onto the skull, and I just hang it out in the sun. I've got a post out here with a nice southern exposure. I hang the skull on there and just let the sun bake on it for a day with that peroxide solution. It just turns white, and that's it. Drill a hole in the back, screw a screw into the wall, stick him on there, and I've got a beautiful trophy in the house.